What's cracking, y'all? You are now watching Boo TV. Appreciate you for stopping in. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, stay notified, and let's get into the topic for today.
What's cracking, y'all? Back with another one from the Michael Jordan universe. If you didn't know, Kobe Bryant's my favorite player of all time, but I believe Michael Jordan is the greatest player of all time. That's where I stand on this GOAT stuff. Right? I don't even have LeBron James in my top 3 because I'm sure this video, LeBron James is not in the title. The title is conclusive evidence that Michael Jordan had the least help. But I know that the LeBron fans and the legenda is going to have something to do with the context of this video. I know it does because this whole thing about people now saying that the Chicago Bulls were some type of, I know some people don't like this term, but whatever, you don't have to like it, a super team. I've never thought any of those championship Chicago Bulls teams were a super team. I'm sorry. I've said that 100 times on this channel. And this hasn't become a thing until this fabricated Michael Jordan versus LeBron James GOAT debate started. And you got the Bron people out here trying to hype up players that Michael Jordan played with to another level, and then at the same time strangely downplaying the players that LeBron James played with. So it seems like LeBron James had to carry more of a load when we all know what actually happened, how he often ran from team to team to seek the help of others and collude and try to strip away competitive balance in the league, and then laughed about it on stage in Miami about how easy it was going to be and how unstoppable they were going to be. What kind of competitive spirit is that? But anyway, I'm not going to go down that road right now because I can go on for a very long time. But like I said, I never looked at those Jordan teams or the Chicago Bulls team like that, man. Scottie Pippen, all-time great, sure, right? Horace Grant, great player, sure. Dennis Rodman, an amazing specialist, amazing defensive player, amazing rebounder. Was he some type of all-star that can be the focal point of your team and carry a team to the playoffs? Hell no. Stop it. Defensive anchor? Yeah, no question. And his off-the-court antics helped boost his popularity as well. And his on-court antics helped boost his popularity as well. Promise you that. So listen, man. I'm sorry, man. They'll sit here and try to make Steve Kerr and freaking Mike Burrell and Tony Kukoc make it seem like these guys were Anthony Davis, Dwayne Wade, hell, even Mo Williams. And they weren't even Mo Williams. Mo Williams was an all-star playing with LeBron James. People tend to forget about him. He got scapegoated, by the way. Anyway, let's get into it.
All of this, with this much help, here we go again. This fanboy doing the most to make another GOAT video. I resent that, but let me explain myself. This has nothing to do with tearing down his teammates. It's comparing his help with all the top 10 worthy players. I was shocked to see the huge discrepancy. I will mention 12 all-time great players, and I will go from the player with the most help to the least. Spoiler, Michael had the least. The surprise will be by how much. We start with Shaquille O'Neal. He played for 6 teams, and he usually tried to team up with extremely talented players. That's indicative of the 9 top 75 players he played with. That includes Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, and Steve Nash. These next players weren't quite in their prime, but were still awesome. That includes Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, Gary Payton, and Karl Malone.
I'm glad he brought that up because when we talk about this, a lot of people just look at the players at face value, but the player that we're talking about, where were they? Were they in their prime? Were they out of their prime? Before or after their prime? And then the players that they played with, were these players in their prime? Before or after their prime? It's like, yeah, I played with Karl Malone and Gary Payton, but that is far from prime Karl Malone and Gary Payton. Though, to be fair, Karl Malone played pretty damn good with the Lakers.
He also played with an MVP as his teammate, which was LeBron James in 2010. Then there was a teammate who won the Finals MVP over him, Dwayne Wade, in 2006. Now what about the number of All-Stars he played with? Keep in mind, we're only talking about seasons where these players were teammates of Shaq, not for their careers. There's no cheating here. That number is 11. Excluding the top 75 players we've already mentioned, we have Penny Hardaway, Eddie Jones, Nick Van Exel, Amari Stoudemire, and Rajon Rondo. How many of those made the All-NBA? He had 6 total teammates who were considered the best at their position during their time with Shaq. As far as All-NBA defenders, there were 4 players. Next up is a player Shaq is usually linked to, Wilt Chamberlain. I guess they both shared the desire to team up with the best. He played with 6 top 75 players. That includes Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, Hal Greer, and Paul Arizin. These next 2 players weren't quite yet in their prime. That's Billy Cunningham and Nate Thurmond. Let's not forget the time that Jerry West was playing so out of his mind in the 1969 finals that he won the Finals MVP, even though they lost. As far as All-Stars, he played with 9 total. Besides the top 75 players include Tom Gola, Thomas Sherry, Chet Walker, and Gail Goodrich. How many of them made the All-NBA?
I'll be honest with you, I'm only familiar with a handful of the players that he's talking about. I ain't gonna sit here and act like I know about all these players he's mentioning. I don't.
He had 3 total teammates. As far as All-NBA defenders, he had Jerry West. Let's keep in mind that this was introduced to the league in the 1968-69 season. Jerry West also led the league in scoring and assists while playing with Wilt. We move on to another all-time great center, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He played with 4...
Wilt changed his game when he went to LA. Also, so like he wasn't looking to score as much and do all that stuff because I'm sure Wilt could have still led the league in scoring if he wanted to.
4 top 75 players. That includes Oscar Robertson, Magic Johnson, James Worthy, and Bob McAdoo, who wasn't near the player he was in the 70s. The reason I put Kareem here is because he's the only player that had a teammate that had multiple MVP seasons. Magic Johnson won 2 MVPs during Kareem's time with the Lakers. He also won 3 Finals MVPs, and James Worthy won a Finals MVP as well. As far as All-Stars, he had 8 teammates. We're adding Bob Dandridge, Flynn Robinson, Jim Price, Jamal Wilkes, and Norm Nixon. He also had a teammate that won the Defensive Player of the Year award. That was Michael Cooper in 1987.
Cool.
How many teammates made the All-NBA? He had 2. The same can be said for the All-NBA defense. We'll also add that Magic led the league in assists and steals at various times. The next player is a little surprising. It's Larry Bird. He played with 6 top 75 players. That includes Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish. These next players were no longer in their prime. That's Tiny Archibald, Bill
Yes.
Walton, and Dave Cowens.
Yes.
Then there's Pete Maravich, who was a shell of himself.
He only played 1 year with Pistol Pete before Pete retired.
He played with 7 All-Star teammates. We're adding Dennis Johnson, Danny Ainge, and Reggie Lewis. Let's not forget that Cedric Maxwell won the Finals MVP in 1981. As far as teammates that made the All-NBA, he had 3 of them. The same can be said for All-NBA defense. That's right, Dave Cowens was an All-NBA defender in his final season. To close out the top 5, we have LeBron James. We're talking about the constructor of super teams, and the numbers say how much talent he's had surrounding him. He's played with 5 top 75 players. That list includes Dwayne Wade and Anthony Davis. The players that weren't in their prime years include Shaq, Ray Allen, and Russell Westbrook. He's also played with 7 All-Star teammates.
Russ, I think that at least that first year with the Lakers, he was still, I think he was still prime Russ. He just came off a fantastic season with the Washington Wizards. And he still had a good season individually with the Lakers, except he was scapegoated. He was scapegoated, thrown under the bus, marginalized because he played with LeBron. And then there was the turn on Russell Westbrook's career. Had he stayed his ass away from LA, we would have been saying, yeah, Russ probably on the downhill of his prime, but still inside of that prime window. But this is what happened when you're a point guard, all-star point guard, going to play with LeBron. You're going to get marginalized. You're going to get ran over by the bus, and your value is going to be diminished. And that happened to Russ. I said all of this was going to happen to Russ before he even played a single game with the Lakers. I called it. I said, man, I can't believe Russ did this. They're going to destroy this man's career. He's going to get blamed for everything, and it's not going to look pretty next to LeBron. I called it.
We're adding Zydrunas Ilgauskas, Mo Williams, Chris Bosh, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Love. LeBron has had 2 teammates that made the All-NBA. He had the same number of teammates that were selected for the All-NBA defense. We move on to Bill Russell. The Celtics always had a fair amount of talent during their 60s reign. In fact, Russell played with 4 top 75 teammates. That includes Bob Cousy, Sam Jones, Bill Sharman, and John Havlicek.
The other thing I got to look at with LeBron is, of that top talent, those super teams, it's like, all right, what was the level of these players that you played with? Right? To say you have Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, LeBron was a top 2 player in the league. Dwayne Wade was a top 3 player in the league. Chris Bosh was a top 10 and top 15 player in the league. I look at that too. Not just how many, but how many in that time, and what was, how potent was their all-star level. Dwayne Wade had a Finals MVP already, man. Dwayne Wade taught LeBron James how to be a champion.
Let's not forget that Bob Cousy won the MVP award in 1957. He also led the league in assists 4 times during the Russell era. As far as teammates that were all-stars, he had 6 total. We're adding Tom Heinsohn and Bailey Howe to that list. Then there were 4 players that were selected for the All-NBA.
Cool.
Keep in mind that only 10 players were selected for this honor during this time. Only the best of the best could be selected. The next player is Kobe Bryant. The amount of help he had was very similar to the ringmaster. He's had 4 top 75 teammates. The most notable one is Shaq. We must include that he won the MVP award and scoring title in 2000 and 3 Finals MVPs. However, the next 3 weren't in their prime when playing with the Mamba. That's Karl Malone, Gary Payton, and Steve Nash.
Yeah.
He's also had 6 All-Star teams.
In fact, Nash retired after the Lakers. Nash was a fossils. Karl Malone retired after the Lakers that one year. And Gary Payton stuck around and went on to play with the Miami Heat and won a championship. And believe it or not, when Kobe won those 2 rings, post-Shaq, he had no top 75 help. Yes, believe it or not, that guy on the screen right there, Pau Gasol, was not voted into the NBA top 75. Now, I disagree with that. I believe Pau should have been on that top 75 list, ahead of a handful of people like Damian Fraud Leonard. Ain't no way in hell I'll put Damian ahead of Pau Gasol. Get out of here. But anyway, according to the official top 75 list, Kobe Bryant won 2 championships as the only top 75 player. According to that BS list.
Teammates. We're adding Eddie Jones, Nick Van Exel, Pau Gasol, Andrew Bynum, and Dwight Howard. Just as Bill Russell, he's had 4 players that were selected for the All-NBA. Then there were 2 teammates who were All-NBA defenders while playing with Kobe. We transition to another Laker legend, Magic Johnson. He's had 3 top 75 teammates. That includes Kareem, James Worthy, and Bob McAdoo. Let's not forget that Kareem won the MVP in 1980 and the Finals MVP in 1985. James Worthy also won the Finals MVP in 1988. As we mentioned for Kareem, Michael Cooper won the Defensive Player of the Year award in 1987. Magic also had 5 All-Star teammates. We're adding Jamal Wilkes, Norm Nixon, and A.C. Green to that list. Then there were 2 teammates that made the All-NBA. Although the Showtime Lakers weren't always known for their defense, he had 3 teammates who were selected for the All-NBA defense. We move on to Tim Duncan. It shouldn't be any surprise that he is this low.
Yeah.
The Spurs were never about building super teams, but they did surround him with a good amount of talent. He played with 2 top 75 players. That's David Robinson and Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi also won the Defensive Player of the Year award in 2015 and 2016. He also won the Finals MVP in 2014. Then, he led the league in steals in 2015. Another one of his teammates who won the Finals MVP was Tony Parker in 2007. As far as All-Star teammates, he's had 5 of them. We're adding Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and LaMarcus Aldridge. All 5 players were selected to the All-NBA during the Duncan era. The Spurs were mostly known for their defense during the 2000s, and there were 3 players who were All-NBA defenders. Now we've entered the top 3 for this topic. Believe it or not, Steph Curry is among the top 3. He's played with 2 top 75 players, Kevin Durant and Chris Paul. KD won 2 Finals MVPs in 2017 and 2018. Draymond Green also won a major individual award. He won the Defensive Player of the Year in 2017. He also led the league in steals that year. Then Andre Iguodala won the Finals MVP in 2015. As far as All-Star teammates, he's played with 4 total. That includes Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and Andrew Wiggins. The Warriors' Big 4 have been selected for the All-NBA. That's what makes his entry a little deceiving. Unlike the rest of the examples here, these legendary players were all teammates and in their prime at the same time. He also had 3 All-NBA defenders who have helped cover him. The last player is the only one that can be compared to his airness, and that's Hakeem Olajuwon. He played with 3 top 75 players. That's Clyde Drexler, Charles Barkley, and Scottie Pippen.
Which were all
Although
over
it's
the
fair
hill.
to say that they were all at the tail end of their prime. He also played with 5 total All-Stars. We're adding Ralph Sampson, Otis Thorpe, and Vince Carter. That was for the one season Hakeem played with the Toronto Raptors before calling it quits.
Yeah.
And lastly, he played with 1 All-NBA player. That was Ralph Sampson. What he accomplished with this little
Sampson's
talent
beast.
compared to the other greats is extremely impressive. That's why he's in the conversation for the greatest players of all time. If you think that's impressive, I present to you Michael Jordan. He's played with 4 top 75 players. That's Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman. Shout out to George Gervin and Robert Parrish, who was only here just to be technical. The number of players that went to the All-Star game with Jordan was only 1. That's Scottie Pippen. The number of players who made the All-NBA is 1. That's Scottie Pippen. The number of All-NBA defenders he's had is 2. Dennis Rodman is among those players who also led the league in rebounds 3 times. That is where the list ends. Think about how impressive this is. How many of these players listed would have complained and pouted for having this quote-unquote little help?
Yeah.
How many would have switched teams because of this? How many would have accomplished this much by playing with 1 All-Star player for his entire career? We all know the answer to these questions. So when I say that this man is the GOAT, when I say that his 6-0 finals record means so much more than you could ever imagine, when I say that losing to Larry Bird twice in the playoffs without his only All-Star teammate is the stupidest argument against his GOAT case, especially with what we know now about the amount of help Larry Bird had, you know why I'm saying all of this. Nobody in the history of the league knows how to carry a team more than Michael Jordan. That's just what the numbers say. But what about you all? What surprised you the most from this list? How was Michael Jordan able to accomplish so much with this little help? How would you defend the other players mentioned here? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.
Well, I've been in plenty of debates about the whole Michael Jordan thing and his success in the 90s. And, you know, I could go back and forth with days, with points and then counterpoints. Oh, you know, he didn't do it in the 80s. I get it. You know, a lot of the older greats, or a lot of the greats in the 80s were on the tail end of their career. Many of them retired. I get it. I think some of that is a bit exaggerated. Magic Johnson was still a top player in the early 90s, but we know Magic's story. Despite people saying Isaiah Thomas himself saying he was old and over the hill when the Chicago Bulls finally beat him. That's false. That's absolutely false. Go look at those players' ages. I'm not getting into it because I don't want to go down that route right now. But Yeah, I'm glad you brought the Steph Curry thing because it's like, yeah, when you look at it, it's like, well, Kevin Durant, really? You know, I talk about all-time phenomenal player that he played with, Kevin Durant. But that was such a deep team, and all those guys were in their prime at the same time. Klay Thompson, one of the greatest shooters of all time, probably, maybe in my opinion, the greatest spot-up shooter, catch and shoot, three-point shooter of all time. I think that's a fair assessment. Definitely some validity to it. You could argue for that. Draymond Green. All four of those guys in their prime, yeah, that's something to deal with. But like when I look at Draymond Green individually, Swiss Army knife kind of guy, but can you build a team around Draymond Green? Can Draymond Green lead your team to playoffs? No. Draymond Green, the best player on your team, you're gonna be fighting for a lottery balls every season. Same thing with Klay Thompson. Even in Klay Thompson's prime with all his shooting ability, if you're gonna build a team around Klay Thompson, you might be at the bottom of the standings in whatever conference or fighting for a lottery. He can't carry a team. He doesn't have a handle on the ball. He can't create for others. He's not that kind of player. He was a great defender, no question about that, and a catch and shoot spot up shooter, or catch it on the go, lay it up. He's not a great ball handler, not a great passer. So like I said, you can't win a championship with building around Klay Thompson. If you build a team around Klay Thompson, the rest, you're going to need like 7 or 8 other parts that are as good as him. So it's not a lot of top level players, but all that combined with that system, that deep bench, yeah, good luck beating those Warriors. You got 3 of the greatest shooters to ever play the game, and Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, had a brain fart there, and Klay Thompson. And of course, they didn't even mention when they got Boogie Cousins, because Boogie Cousins' career never really got off like it was supposed to because of injuries. But when Boogie Cousins was on that Warriors team, there were plenty of games where Boogie Cousins was the best player on the floor. And they never had a dynamic on that Warriors squad like Boogie. A 7-footer that could do all the things Boogie could do. Boogie was underrated, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that a lot of people didn't like his attitude and the aura that was created around him. Some of it definitely self-inflicted during his time with the Sacramento Kings, and that kind of stained his image. So with that, people weren't really watching him or willing to accept him for his actual skill. But after he left Sacramento, he wasn't really much of a problem anymore. Everybody loved him. Everybody said he was great in the locker room with the other franchises that he played on. And I'm telling you, boy, his facilitating, his passing ability, his post play, his mid-range game, he could even shoot the 3. He could put the ball on the floor. Steve Kerr, he was delighted. He's like, man, I've never had a chance to run through a big like we can with Boogie Cousins when he's on the floor. I went and saw that Warriors team play live when they came to Washington, D.C. back when I was living in the DMV. And listen, Boogie was dissecting the Wizards, man. I was like, man, this team with Boogie Cousins on a minimum contract because nobody was willing to accept him. You know what? I'm not getting into this. I'm going to make a video about this later. Michael Jordan, ladies and gentlemen. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, stay notified. I'll catch you on the next one. We out, baby.